All right. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Joel, the Stress Recovery Ninja, and I'm super excited to announce my guest here with us today on your Adrenal Fix. It is Wendy Myers. Wendy is the founder of MyersDetox.com, and she's an expert in detoxification, heavy metals, and minerals, and she's a functional diagnostic nutritionist and NES health bioenergetic practitioner in Los Angeles, California. She's the #1 best-selling author of Limitless Energy, How to Detox Toxic Metals to End Exhaustion and Chronic Fatigue, and hosted the Heavy Metal Summit. Wendy hosts 2 podcasts, including Myers Detox Podcast and Detox, and the Supercharged Podcast and Bioenergetics. Wendy is passionate about educating the public on the importance of heavy metal detoxing, considering our toxic world. After using hair mineral analysis to identify toxic metals as the root cause of her own health issues, Wendy developed a revolutionary wellness protocol and has now helped tens of thousands of clients around the world to get well with the Myers Detox protocol. So Wendy, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, like a lot of the guests that we have, Wendy, they have their own personal stories, and just like myself, and that's the area that I got into as well. So, you mentioned that with your own hair mineral analysis test, you discovered this whole, I'm sure, rabbit hole of toxic exposures that maybe some doctors were telling you that wasn't going on. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your personal story?
Well, I'm like a lot of people. Like a lot of people listening, I was doing so many things for my health. I was eating this amazing diet. I was cooking all my own food, all organic. And I was going to bed at a good time every night, though I was having trouble sleeping, taking a huge bag full of supplements and spending a ton of money on supplements. And I was exercising, and I just couldn't lose weight. I just didn't feel like myself. I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. I was having mood issues. I just didn't feel happy. And I just felt like I was like really, really brain fogged. And I felt like for all the effort, I was putting in my health and almost like it being a full-time job, I thought something's wrong. And it's just not, there's just something going on. So I went to my doctor and said, figure out what's going on with me. And she did all these tests and found out, even though I was taking perfect care of myself, that I still had low thyroid hormones. I had the hormone levels of a menopausal woman. My cortisol was completely in the toilet. I know my adrenals were not producing stress hormones like cortisol and aldosterone. And I had a lot of nutrient deficiencies, and just, she wanted to put me on hormone replacement therapy. And I just thought I'm 37, I'm not going on hormone replacement therapy. And like so many doctors, they want to give you a medication, send you out the door with the medication, see if that works. So I thought, something got me into this position. It certainly wasn't my diet and lifestyle. What is happening? So I went on Dr. Google and started researching, and just discovered hair mineral analysis and heavy metals and chemicals and all these xenoestrogens and all these things interfering in our hormones. And I thought, why have I never discovered this before, or read anything about this before? And it just a light bulb went off for me, and I did testing and started detoxing, and I started feeling better and better and better and better. And my hormone levels are normal now. They're in a very good range. And so for me, that's just, it was really important for me to, publish everything I was learning. And I was so excited about it. I want to get the word out to more people that heavy metals are interfering in your energy production, in your blood sugar levels, in your ability to sleep, in your hormone levels, and just every conceivable metabolic process in your body can be affected by heavy metals and chemicals. So I started publishing on MyersDetox.com what I was learning, and here I am today talking to you.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Very similar to my story, where I had already had some training in exercise physiology, and I'd already gone through psychology and another degree, and then I went through chiropractic college, and then I just crashed, and my wife was pregnant with twins, and I had over $200,000 worth of student debt, and I was moving to a new country. I'm from Canada, and then I injured my back, and I had to get to work. I have a lot of mouths to feed. And then Dr. Karazian's book, Why Do I Have Thyroid Symptoms, Even Though My Blood Tests Are Normal? An acupuncturist gave that to me, Wendy. and I don't have a thyroid problem. And so it sat on my desk, and it's something just kind of gravitated me towards it. And finally, I opened it up, and lo and behold, when I opened up the chapter on adrenals, from somehow they had a picture of my face in there. I had no idea how they had it, but like yourself, when you mentioned I had never heard of this, I had never heard of adrenal fatigue, and you'd never heard of, well, you knew of heavy metals, but it wasn't really on your radar in terms of how this could be leading and not commensurating all the hard work that you're doing with your proactivity, but it wasn't reaching the levels that you needed to see. At that time, I'm just curious, were you already a nutritionist, or what were you doing at that time?
No, I wasn't. I was a stay-at-home mom. I just had a baby, and I'd read about health my entire life. I mean, since I was 10 years old, I've been reading about health stuff, and my dad was really into that too, and food as well, healthy food and cooking. But for me, I just started reading so intensely about health and healthy food and diet that I just decided to go to nutrition school and then start my website my blog when I was still in nutrition school. And so when I started having my own health crisis and started learning about heavy metals, for me, that was just I made that my intense focus.
Yeah, and that, no one's going to care about your health as much as you're going to care about your health. And what's really nice about that, Wendy, is now you're sharing with the world what you learned about yourself that other Wendys out there had no idea about, that weren't on their radar. So that's great transition to talking about my demographic, where it's not so much an adrenal fatigue problem only. It's a very controversial term, and we're working hard in terms of educating not just the person who's suffering, but the medical establishment from all disciplines to be on the same page as to the stress response really breaks down, and it involves much more of the body than just the adrenals. It impacts the cellular level, and that's a great transition to you and what you do. So let's talk about how it came on your radar, the heavy metals, and then how you went with your research. And what you've designed right now is this. Well, I guess the first question I would ask is, with your research, how do metals really impact the energy production? So we can share that with those that are suffering with these exhaustion problems.
Well, it's interesting. So many people that have adrenal fatigue also can have chronic fatigue issues, because some of the symptoms look very, very similar. So, there's some people that only have adrenal fatigue, some people only have chronic fatigue, but a big population have both. And the symptoms are similar, but of course, stress is a huge cause in just burning yourself out. But metals can also play a big role in producing symptoms. So heavy metals like arsenic, aluminum, tin, thallium, and cesium basically poison enzymes that transport nutrients into our mitochondria. And our mitochondria are the little powerhouses of the cells. And so even if you're taking mitochondrial enhancing supplements or brain enhancing supplements or, energy enhancing supplements, mitosupps, they may not be getting into your mitochondria to do their job, because the nutrient or the enzymes that transport those supplements into your mitochondria to work are being poisoned by heavy metals. That's how heavy metals work. They poison enzymes that make proteins that do different jobs in the body. And the same thing can happen with stress hormones. So your body may be in production mode where it's able to produce these hormones like adrenaline or cortisol, but different metals will poison hydroxylase enzymes, and those are used to produce stress hormones, to produce cortisol, aldosterone, and also to convert, like say, testosterone into estrogen or DHEA into testosterone. And so the enzymes to do that are being poisoned also by heavy metals, thereby inhibiting your production. And so people have reduced amount of stress hormones being produced and a reduced amount of just hormones in general, and reduce energy production, which affects every other metabolic process in your body, including brain function. So metals do a lot of damage in regards to your body's ability to produce hormones of all kinds.
Yeah, and it's quite amazing, just the domino effect. And what I tell patients when it gets very complicated, Wendy, and you start getting into the weeds of mitochondria and enzymes and SNPs and so forth, is just take away this, especially with the hydroxylase enzymes, is they need oxygen. And if without being more complicated than we need to be, just understand there's a demand and supply problem where your body needs a certain amount of oxygen to produce energy, and the supply is not equaling demand. And as a result, your body goes into prioritization mode and puts the most important priorities on the things that need to get accomplished, and other things like reproduction and hormone production and just brain focus, they may take a backseat. So as far as with your protocol, Wendy, with the Myers detox, what's the best way for you or someone to test if they have a heavy metal burden?
Well, I encourage people to do a hair mineral analysis, and that's a very good first step. There's no test that tests all of your heavy metals because metals come out in different pathways in the body. Some metals we see best in the hair, some metals we see best in the urine, some metals we see best in the stool. In an ideal world, you do all three tests. I avoid blood tests typically because the body, it's not going to allow metals to be floating around in the body and the body's highway communication system in the bloodstream for very long. It will sequester metals away in bones and fat and other tissues. So the blood is not the best indicator of metals. And so certainly not, metals that are, tucked away in your tissues, in your bones. So I like hair mineral analysis because it's a 3-month average of what's excreting into your hair. And we have a nice picture of mineral levels as well, because minerals are a very, very important part of pushing metals out of the body, getting your body working better so it can detox better. So minerals are super, super important. Everyone is deficient, even if they're eating a stellar diet, because the soils are deficient. So minerals, super important. That's another reason I like hair mineral analysis.
Yeah, so a question that I have for you is, are you still dumbfounded when you have patients that come to you and say that my doctor said that I don't have any heavy metals, and they showed you their blood metal test because, the doctor doesn't say it's there? I mean, are you still seeing that happen present day?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of people will maybe, hear something about metals and ask their conventional doctor to do a test because it's covered by insurance, understandably. And the doctors typically don't know anything about detoxification or metals testing. So what's covered by insurance is a blood test. And typically it's only testing for metals, which, since there are, dozens of metals, obviously not very comprehensive, and people end up getting false negatives where they have no metals showing their blood and they think, oh, I'm good, and they don't get any contradictory information to that from their physician. So maybe it goes off their radar. But the fact of the matter is, even if you do testing, you do hair, urine, or stool, many times people aren't detoxing very well, if at all, especially if they have multiple health issues. All the energy is going towards survival. You have to have excess energy for detoxification. It's an energy intensive process. So many times initial tests don't show a lot of metals, but once we get people taking minerals, antioxidants, increasing the energy production of their body, and doing detox protocols like infrared saunas, then subsequent tests show more and more metals coming out when the body starts able to detox them better.
Yeah, I think that's an important point for people to understand, because just because it's not on the test doesn't mean it's not in your body. And
Yes.
I use the analogy a lot of the times where if you have a subset of kids that have a diagnosis of autism and those that don't, and you measure a test of metals, then trick question, who are the ones that are going to show heavy metals? And typically it's going to be the ones that have not the diagnosis. And then people look at, well, I don't get that. Well, imagine the ones that are able to get it out are the ones that have less cognitive changes. And then it kind of rings a bell. So it kind of hits home. So as far as when you're doing your testing with hair mineral analysis, you just kind of hit upon that in terms of maybe we see on one test that there's not a lot of metals, and then on another coming out in the hair, and then another test there is. So how much of your interaction has to be aware of the educational part of that? And what would you say in terms of, so that you're not looking like you're coming up with an excuse, oh yeah, it wasn't there, but now it is there. How is the dialogue, Wendy, to explain to those that now get the concept, okay, if I do a test, it's not necessarily negative just because it's negative, or so how would you explain to a patient that that's a good thing, that now as we do these different nutritional balancing protocols and we're displacing metals that weren't displaced before, that had displaced minerals, that now we're getting them out of the body. I guess, how would we explain that to your patient base?
Well, it's one of those things where when people are typically coming to you ready to do detox tests, they typically are having a lot of symptoms or a lot of diagnoses, really not feeling well. So understandably, we have some people that have tests that really aren't showing a ton of metals. So, when people are doing a consult to review their tests, we explain all this stuff to them, educate them. And I've noticed, like, my healthiest clients, the ones that are maybe professional athletes, or I've worked with Dr. Mercola and Ben Greenfield and Katie the Wellness Mama, and like all these, Donna Gates, all these people that are really, really healthy, and they have a ton of metals coming out. But my clients that tend to be on the sicker side, or chronically fatigued, they don't have as many metals coming out. So that's where the role of a detox practitioner that knows how to get the body detoxing comes into play, where we, figure out everything that's going on with the person and get them on the right kind of targeted supplement protocol to grab onto the metals that they have specifically to remove them, and work around any kind of like genetic issues or food sensitivity or supplement sensitivity issues. There's a lot of like little, minefield, so to speak, that one can encounter when trying to detox people. So we have a lot of tools in our toolbox to help people to get them detoxing, even if they are having trouble detoxing.
Yeah, and would you mind, would you be so kind as to share the Myers detox for mitochondria, the systems that you like to use so that people can help remove these heavy metals and that are interfering with their energy production?
Yeah, well, I think the first step is, trying to find out based on a questionnaire what kind of metal levels that somebody may have. So I created a quiz. It's called heavymetalsquiz.com. And people can go there and take this few-minute quiz and find out based on their lifestyle and food choices what their potential levels of metals are. And then in there, after there's some educational videos that talk about some solutions. One of them is what I call my mitochondria detox. And in that, I recommend people taking a binder. It's perfect for anyone that's wanting to do some type of detox. It absorbs dozens of metals and hundreds of chemicals and mold mycotoxins and other types of issues that cause people symptoms, fatigue and brain fog and other things that people are dealing with. And then we also, part of the mitochondria detox is an activated silica. And that is a type of silica specifically formulated, because there's a lot of different types of silicas that do very different things based on the chemical formulation of the product. But the activated silica that I offer is specifically formulated to grab onto metals that interfere in energy production and hormone production and stress hormone production. So it will detox and grab onto arsenic, aluminum, tin, thallium, and cesium. And thallium is something we're all breathing in because it's naturally occurring in petroleum deposits. So we breathe that in from auto exhaust and smog and industrial pollution and things like that. And cesium, there's a lot of that being unleashed in the environment from Fukushima, Japanese nuclear disaster. And anyone growing up in Europe that was exposed to Chernobyl, they're also going to have a really high level of cesium.
Okay, so then they go to the, well, I'm sorry, what was the name of the detox? Was it quiz, or I'm sorry about that?
Yeah, it's heavymetalsquiz.com.
Heavymetalquiz.com. And then from there, what would you say your most favorite detox protocol is if you've identified a burden in a person's body?
Yeah, well, the simplest thing people can do is go to mitodetox.com. That's the simplest detox kit that I recommend for people to get started on a detox, maybe while they're waiting to do testing or trying to kind of figure out what their next step is on their learning curve. A lot of materials and free stuff. I've got, almost 300 podcasts on myersdetox.com also, and lots of free materials and downloads, free e-guides and things like that for people to get started. But a lot of people, like, you're asking, like, where do I start? That's probably one of the most effective, simple, easy protocols to do that's inexpensive also.
Yeah, and I mean, it's great to have these tools, and I know you've put together a checklist. So where would they get the checklist for these tips?
So we have a top 10 tips to detox, like a pro checklist. And for that, people can go to detoxforenergy.com.
Okay, awesome. And then as far as you mentioned, you have the podcast. So where would listeners be able to go and find your work besides these quizzes and so forth? Where can they listen to your podcast?
Yeah, well, people can go on myersdetox.com and press the podcast button, or they can go on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere where podcasts are available for download.
That's great. So I always like to ask, and I kind of stole this from Dr. Lynch, and what he did with his most recent ShyCon, or Dirty Genes actually, was he asked them, especially as it relates to his topic, so as it relates to my topic, which is your topic in terms of the stress response and the impact on the environment and on the mitochondria fundamentally. What would you do differently knowing what you know now then, specifically based on, I mean, you were working hard, you had a good diet, you were doing good nutritional supplements, probably like everyone else who has a little, warehouse in their cupboard with all these different supplements, but it wasn't enough. And so what would you tell the early Wendy who was suffering? What would you tell her now that then that now?
Well, I would tell her that, we have to add detoxification, daily detoxification to our health regimen, because in our toxic world today, the diet and lifestyle and supplements, it's just not enough. And I think many listeners can attest to that. I have all my clients, I mean, they are eating unbelievably well. They're taking a ton of supplements. They're doing everything that they can to be healthy, and they still feel like crap. And that's exactly where I was as well. And so when I added detoxification to my protocol and what I was doing on a daily basis, I felt loads better. I mean, I started doing coffee enemas. I started doing infrared saunas on a regular basis and taking targeted detox supplements, including a binder. And just those steps, adding it to my daily regimen, like I do other things, exercise, really made a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, I think it points to the fact, I think it's a good term where detox is a verb, right? It's not a noun. It's not something you just do one time. It's something that you're constantly either getting a little more out of the body on a daily basis or getting a little bit more in the body on a daily basis. And I like that idea. And also, like you mentioned, it's just unfortunate, but it's a reality that the soils are so devoid of the nutrients nowadays. And I don't think our maker necessarily anticipated all the environmental chemicals and toxins that are in the environment, that in that detox equation, we're losing the battle if we're not focused and concentrated and making sure that we're doing something every day. So Wendy, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time and all the things that you're doing, and you're sharing so much and giving so much value to people that are suffering. I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if anyone wants to learn more about me, really, I would just start with heavymetalsquiz.com. That's the best place to go to kind of, if you're curious about your heavy metal levels, to take the quiz.
Yeah, and just an aside, as far as that goes, so how did you formulate that? You formulated that based on just if someone has this burden of this metal, it will be more like this symptom, or how did that get created?
Well, it's just based on some lifestyle choices. Like if people are eating a large amount of fish or sushi, they're going to have more mercury and cadmium. If people are have done a large amount of vaccines, they're going to have a lot of aluminum in them than someone who hasn't. Aluminums have extremely high levels of aluminum in them that cause brain issues and symptoms. And there's just a lot of other questions like that. Do they use conventional cosmetics? Those will have a lot of metals and chemicals in them. So there's a lot of questions like that to help us deduce what someone's body burden may be of certain metals.
Awesome. Awesome, Wendy. I appreciate your time and I wish you the best going forward. And hopefully our paths will cross pretty soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, great. Have a great day.